Welcome to the Unconventional Ministry podcast. I'm Dennis Wiens, your host, the Senior Impact Catalyst at Sat7 USA. Sat7 is the sponsor of this podcast. I want to thank them, as well as invite you to go to their website, sat7usa.org, and read some of the amazing stories coming from the Middle East and North Africa of what God is doing to build his church. And I'm privileged this morning to have Dan Janzen with me, the president of the Fellowship of Christian Farmers International. They do an amazing work. Their mission is to encourage farm families and agricultural professionals to proclaim Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. And FCFI combines faith, farming, and global outreach in powerful ways. So, Dan, welcome to the Unconventional Ministry podcast.
Well, it's great to be here, Dennis, with you on your podcast, and it's such a privilege. And just a slight correction, I'm the executive director, and we do have a board president, and so anyway, just a slight correction there. So great to be here.
Well, sorry for that misrepresentation, but welcome anyway to the Unconventional Ministry podcast. For those who don't know you, could you share a little bit about your background in farming and what brought you to the leadership of this great organization?
Well, I grew up on a farm out in Salem, Oregon, and we were a very diversified farm. And then I went on for a bachelor's and a master's degree in agriculture, focusing on international agriculture, because I had an encounter with a missionary whom I told I was very interested in agriculture. And that missionary had said, "Hey, there's such a thing as an agricultural missionary and doing agricultural development." And so my whole life was focused on that aspect of using agriculture and ministry together. And when I came back from 8 years in South Sudan, my wife and I both serving, and I was doing agricultural development there. And I was looking for a way to continue ministry because we had to take care of my mother-in-law who needed more care, and that pulled us back from the mission field. And so I wanted to stay in ministry. And so my mother, who had been involved with the Fellowship of Christian Farmers for 23 years, told me about there was a executive director position open at FCFI. And so I just, within about 2 weeks, I had actually landed a position and been working with FCFI for a year and a half, and really enjoying it, and really enjoying the challenge and the mission that they have to reach the world for Christ.
Right.
And to address the special needs of farmers in unique ways.
So your mission has a unique mission, encouraging farm families and agricultural professionals to proclaim Christ. How does FCFI live this out both in the U.S. and international? What does your work look like?
Well, there's a very strong emphasis in the U.S. domestically in the area of doing farm shows, fairs, festivals, and also the Future Farmers of America. We go to almost 30 of their conferences, conventions each year, and we present the gospel, and we give out a walking stick or a yardstick or some other type of swag or giveaway item that gives us a chance to have a few minutes basically a very brief summary of the gospel and an invitation to actually receive Christ as their personal Savior and Lord. And we're actually building in a discipleship component now with newer technology, cutting edge technology, to link that in a very efficient way and start people on a discipleship program. So that's new and upcoming, and we're working on that and introducing it as we speak. And then the other thing that we do, about 10% of our efforts actually go to disaster relief, particularly domestically, where you get a rural setting and the FEMA comes in and hands out money and tries to take care of the situation. But there are a lot of farmers that are overlooked in rural areas. No one comes in and picks up their field from all their debris. And so we organize the FFA to do that. And then if the fence needs to be built from a wildfire or a flood or a hurricane or a tornado, we might be able to do that. We're not saying we can get everywhere and take care of every need, but as our volunteers are available, we manage them into opportunities there. And then we also have the international aspect. Now, I am really, really working hard to build this back up because it's waned since COVID. A lot of things shut down, and due to some of the age of some of the leaders, we were having less emphasis on the international during the COVID period. And we're going to be picking that back up, and we're still doing mission trips overseas, and we're going to expand that rapidly. And right now there's an opportunity with some of the WhatsApp groups that I've already set up to actually start a chapter or a fellowship overseas in those contexts, and we're looking for
Yeah.
volunteers. We're particularly interested in anybody who can come and help us out with that.
As you think about your participation in the FFA state fairs and activities, a lot of our podcast listeners, especially in farming communities, will recognize you for the walking stick. And you've given out hundreds of thousands of those over the years. Amazing tool. And I think people line up long lines waiting to get that walking stick. Of course, they have to listen to the presentation as well. So farming is such a hands-on and relational lifestyle. Can you give us some examples of how FCFI uses agriculture as a platform to share the gospel?
Sure. Well, let me go back to the beginning. It was 40 years ago to this year exactly. We're celebrating our 40th year anniversary. The In Texas, the Soybean Commission was meeting, and farmers were under a lot of stress. You remember back in the 80s, and the prices crashed, and it's happening again. The prices are very depressed for farmers, and farmers need to rally together and realize that it's more than just the current situation that they're in terms of the potential stress of farmers and losing their whole farm. And farmers were committing suicide back then. We really needed to rally together. And so the fellowship became a place where we can meet together. Now we have a Zoom meeting every first Saturday of the month where farmers can get together and meet and encourage one another and pray together, and then someone shares. So that's available, and you can find about that on our website at fcfi.com. And then we really try to reach out in all the ways possible that we can to deal with the stressors in farms and farming. And today there are many more stressors besides the price. There's extreme environmental agenda that presses on farmers very extensively. There's uh, just different things that happen, death in the family or sickness or anything that happens. We try to reach out and be a support, like a neighborly support to one another. And we can reach across the miles in so many different ways now because of our newer ways of communicating. And so we're very excited about many new opportunities that are coming along to support one another. And so this is what it looks like to be in fellowship together as a farmer, to help one another in strategic ways. And we
So do you
want to extend that internationally.
so do you have teams in many of these states where you have activities at state conventions, farming activities? You have volunteers that form teams. Is that how you work?
Yes, there are. We have a lot of chapters that are occurring and organized all over the United States, particularly in the Midwest and in the Northeast. Very extensive amount of chapters that form and organize and work together, particularly for the discipleship, for the evangelism ministry. And we're hoping to ex- expand that to a follow up. We want to work with the local church and have the local church when there's a local festival or fair. We'll supply the insurance, and we'll supply some of the volunteers that are needed to train the local church volunteers, and then the local church can do the follow up, and they can also perhaps provide some of the local financing for it, and they can do the discipleship and place people in a local church. And so we're very excited about that aspect of it. And the discipleship ministry is also a vetting ministry for the local church and getting them planted into a discipleship program at the local church as well. That's one aspect of it on the tail end of it.
You know, I grew up as a third culture kid in Africa, so I'm always interested in international work that organizations are doing, and you guys are doing a great work internationally. Went back and worked in Africa for 27 years. Of course, now 20 some years in Middle East, living in the States, but the project's in the Middle East as broadcasters. So I'm interested in the international component. And I was just at Corbin University in Oregon. I know you've spoken at that university. I had lunch with an Asian who came to Corbin to get a degree in agriculture, and he's going back to help his family farm, but also use it as a platform for witnessing in his community. So pretty interesting. So talk to us about some of your international projects.
Sure. Well, we've been going to Romania and we've established some dairy operation there and help with that. And we've been to Tanzania, Cuba, Mexico many, many times. Been down to Mexico, but the security situation is a little bit hairy there and very difficult there. So we haven't been going to Mexico as of late because of that. But we're open to going pretty much anywhere in the world and using the skills of farmers. Farmers have very unique skills, and farmers also have some of the best established Christian worldview. The values of the rural farmer are tremendous. And I think if there's going to be another revival, I think it would be great if it comes from the farming community and starts there, because those value systems are what we need for the rest of the country and what we've lost in, particularly in the inner city. And so I am really needing some volunteers for doing this and people to coordinate. And so we'd love to team up with anybody that in other organizations that want to focus on this and utilize our farming skills and background and special experiences. The idea of a farmer is a jack of all trades and probably a master of many of them. So that's a great place to do partnerships and team up with anybody who has that desire to integrate with us and work together.
I've been to a couple of your national conferences, and I know at one conference we heard a lot about the Ukraine. You guys had a pretty significant work in the Ukraine at one time. Of course, that's disrupted now. And the other thing that stands out about your national conferences, and I invited podcast listeners to maybe go to your national conference. You have a auction every year, a real auction. People donate different things. It's a fundraiser. Somebody brought blueberries from Michigan. Somebody baked fresh blueberry pie, and then they were auctioned off, and I think the pies went for something like $400 because there's such a
Yeah.
reputation. So it's really a fun time, but a great way to give to the organization.
The second to the last week of July, you can look on our website. We're going to be in Branson this year, celebrating and continuing and finishing our 40th year anniversary celebration. We'll culminate this year in Branson in the second to the last week of July. So that's great for join us. I'm sure we're going to be making some day trips out and before pre-conference events and things like that. It'll be a lot of fun, and so we want to encourage people to come to that. And yeah, we've brought blueberries every year. The Bodkes donate blueberries, and we always make sure they're there. And we have an auction, and you're free to donate things for the auction or come purchase items and support our ministry that way.
So give your website so our podcast listeners that are listening that are intrigued to get a fresh blueberry pie
Sure,
in late July know exactly how to get on your website and register for your conference.
sure. So our website is very simple. It's just FCFI, F as in Frank, C as in Charlie, F as in Frank, and I, of course, international, and then org. Easy to get to, and be sure to sign up for the e-news and daily devotions, and we have a pastor's piece, and then also for the Zoom prayer fellowship that happens the first Saturday in the morning of each month.
And you can also search for Fellowship of Christian Farmers International and find it there as well. So, Dan, as we wrap up, many
Correctly.
of our listeners may not be farmers, but they're deeply interested in rural communities and global missions. So, how can they pray, get involved? And you've already talked a little bit about this. How can they support your mission?
A great percentage of our volunteers, particularly with our evangelistic outreach, are not farmers, and they just love to join us. And so please do join us for any aspect of our ministry. We welcome you, even if you're not a farmer. And there's a lot of encouraging interest, particularly among young people, in getting back into farming, and we love to encourage this.
And so we're probably past the state fairs now, but plan to be at the state fairs next summer, next spring, fall, summer. Check out the state fair in your state and look for the Fellowship of Christian Farmers International. I'm sure they'll have a booth and maybe even volunteer to help them at their booth. So, Dan, this is fascinating to hear you talk about your work here and globally. So thank you for coming on the Unconventional Ministry podcast.
Thank you. And our phone number is there too. So give us a call or email us and look at our website.
The Unconventional Ministry podcast shines the spotlight on inspiring, innovative local Christians and their ministries that are making a difference in their communities and beyond. Each episode explores unique stories of faith in action, from local witness and creative outreach to innovative support for the marginalized. We dive into the challenges and victories of those following God's call to step outside of traditional ministry roles, offering listeners practical insights and fresh ideas for living out their own faith. Subscribe today as we celebrate believers who serve in unexpected ways, trusting God's unconventional methods to transform lives and impact the world.